I know, I know, I know. You've heard it all before. You've heard it from me. You've heard it from many other onlookers, Jets fans, pundits, writers, fantasy football fans. Everybody across the board has said it before. We've all been wrong, but I'm going to say it again. I think this season, 2025, this time, this will be what version 3.0 of this should be a huge breakout season for Jets running back Breece Hall. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio, jetnation.com. Be sure to log into jetnation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. So Breece Hall, and I promise you, you have my word, I had no intention of adding another Breece Hall headline commentary to your timelines, your Facebook, your Twitter, your YouTube, whatever. Planned on doing this a couple days ago when I was just looking at the Jets roster, coming up with thoughts and ideas. And then Breece speaks with the media yesterday, and so now we're sort of the timelines are flooded with Breece Hall, Breece Hall, Breece Hall. Not trying to add another one out there, but just like I said, a couple days ago, I was looking at it because you hear the whispers leading up to the draft that Breece is going to get traded. Hearing Aaron Glenn and the type of football team the Jets want to be, I couldn't help but think, looking at the way this roster is currently constructed, we've talked about the lack of a true number two receiver. Pardon me. Talked about the lack of a true number two receiver and how that could impact this team. I do expect them to be a run-heavy team, which, again, I was wrong about last year. I thought they were going to run the hell out of the ball and let Aaron Rodgers throw when they needed him to throw because he was an older guy. He was an injured guy. I felt like they had the personnel to run the ball if they wanted to. And I think Aaron Rodgers is audibled out of everything. And they were, one of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of rushing attempts. And a lot of people talk about Breece Hall's production last year in ways that I think is just inaccurate. I think it's either, not fully informed or just looking at the box score and thinking that's it. Like the box score is telling me the whole story. That's not the case here. So let's take a look. Breece Hall, we all know the Jets tried to trade up to grab him in the first round of the 2022 draft. They were unsuccessful, but he ends up falling. They draft him. He only plays through 7 games as a rookie and looks like one of the best backs in the NFL. He's at 5.8 yards per carry. He looks like he's going to become a workhorse, 1,000-yard back as a rookie. Doesn't happen. Has the season-ending injury in Denver, misses the rest of the year, comes back last year when Aaron Rodgers comes in and you just start envisioning this, what's going to be, in our minds, one of the best offenses in the history of this team. Then, of course, Aaron Rodgers goes down. You go from Aaron Rodgers to Zach Wilson, which means your defenses are no longer respecting the run. And then you get a plethora of injuries along the offensive line, which is a recipe for absolute disaster. Hall ends up rushing for 994 yards on the year. But, of course, we all remember that final game of the season when the Jets went up to New England against the Patriots and just fed him all day long, 37 carries for 178. They were clearly trying to get him to the 1,000-yard mark, which would have been a nice, looks nice on the resume. But, of course, the Jets find a way even to screw that up. And somebody on the sideline who's responsible for counting doesn't really have counting quite down to a science yet. And at 997 yards, they tell Robert Saleh that Breece Hall's at 1,000, and they pull him because he's already got 37 carries, and the Jets have iced the game. And that, to me, that's really, it's window dressing anyway. When I hear people say, oh, he doesn't have a 1,000-yard season. So if he had an extra 3 yards that year, he's a better running back. Now he's in a different class, and we discuss him with the better backs or, talk about him as if he's more accomplished. That's an aesthetic thing. Ooh, it looks nice on a stat sheet. 1,000. Look at that. Yeah, it's an accomplishment. But you're not going to sit here and convince me that 997 means you're worse than if you'd had one more carry for 3 yards. You're the same guy. But again, so year one, the injury. Year two, going from Rodgers to Wilson and all the injuries on the O-line. Bad team, always losing, having to abandon the run early, and he still rushes for 997. To me, an admirable thing. He didn't look as explosive as he did as a rookie. I'll give you that, but still, given the circumstances, it wasn't a really great situation, and he still had a fair amount of success. Then you go to last year, and I hear people say, and if you listen to the show, Jet Nation Radio, make sure you're checking us out, subscribing, click the links and the like and subscribe and all that. If you listen, you've heard me say this a few times during the year, and for those of you who haven't heard it, I'm going to mention it again. because of the fact that we're going over Breece, we're going over what he's managed to accomplish to this point, and the fact that I really think last year he gets a raw deal. I really do. So Breece Hall through the first 5 games last year is not doing a whole lot. He had one decent game against Tennessee where he was just over 4 a carry. But until the Jets remove Nathaniel Hackett, here's Breece Hall's game to game, week to week yards per carry before the Nathaniel Hackett firing. 3.4, 4.4, absolutely fine, respectable number. 3.4, 0.4 against Denver, 2.6 against Minnesota. So through his first 5 games of the season, he's doing nothing, minus the one game against the Titans where he goes for 62 yards on 14 carries, not a bad day. But he's doing nothing. Then we see the offensive coordinator change. We see the Jets get rid of Hackett. They go with, well, at no point do they really commit to Breece, but you do see Breece get a chunk of carries against Buffalo that week. 18 carries was a season high for him up to that point, and he goes for 113 yards. His first 100-yard game of the season, that's 6.3 a carry. Then you go into Pittsburgh, you play the Steelers in Pittsburgh, very good defense. They shut Breece down. I don't think that has to do with the Jets O-line or with Breece. I think Pittsburgh just had a damn good defense, and they're playing at home. They hold Breece to 38 yards on 12 carries. From that point on, Breece Hall is at almost 5 yards a carry every single week. Against New England, 16 for 80, that's 5 a carry. Against Houston, 15 for 74, that's 4.9 a carry. Against Arizona, 10 for 52, that's 5.2 a carry. Now, that was a blowout loss. I think there may have been 1 or 2 big runs in there in garbage time. I'd have to go back and watch, to be completely honest. Against Indianapolis, 16 for 78, that's 4.9 a carry. Against Seattle, 12 for 60, that's 5 a carry. That's 5 weeks in a row of averaging 5 yards a carry. If you include every carry from all of it, he actually might be right at 5 because he's at 5.49, 5.2, 4.95. That's not a bad run. Then he doesn't play against Miami. He does play against Jacksonville, an embarrassing game for the Jets. But again, no commitment to the run. Hall sees the ball 9 times. I mean, at no point in the season did he have a 20 carry game. And I know it's rare that you see that with backs nowadays, but he's a good enough player that when your offense is sputtering, you should be feeding him because he's proven that when you feed him, he does well. Closes out the season, final 3 games against the Rams, 3.7 a carry, not great. Final 2 games, Buffalo, a blowout loss, 4.5 a carry. Nobody really cares. Final game of the year, a win against Miami, 4.8 per carry. So over his final 11 games of the season, in a season that fans tell me Breece Hall was ineffective, Breece Hall couldn't run it. 8 of his final 11 games, he averages 4.5 a carry, and 6 of those 8, he's at 4.8 or better. That's running the ball, folks. Breece Hall could absolutely run the ball last year. The Jets just far too often abandoned the run early. Well, that's not going to happen this year. And you're going to have a running quarterback in Justin Fields and a team, an offense that is likely going to be committed to the run based largely on personnel. You have the offensive line. If Armand Membu is even 75, 80% of what they believe he can be, he is a monster run blocker. The hope is that you have Olu Fashanu for an entire season because you didn't last year, but he was an obvious upgrade when he replaced Tyron Smith. So get Olu in there healthy. If Membu's what he could be, AVT and Simpson and Tippmann all play the way they did last year with a team that's committed to the run and they're going to have now it's a double-edged sword with Fields, or 2 ways of looking at it. Unless he improves that deep accuracy, teams aren't going to back off and respect it until they show they have to. However, he is an absolute monster running the football, and there are going to be plenty of design runs for him. So things like RPOs, our defenses are going to have to wait that extra tick, that extra split second. Like, does Fields still have it? Did it go to Breece? Because either one of those guys can beat you on the ground. And that's without getting into Braylon Allen helping you wear defenses down. And Isaiah Davis looking good the way he did last year. I think this team, as currently constructed with their philosophy, I don't think it's that far off the mark to look at Breece Hall and say that for whatever reasons in the past, he wasn't able to, whether it was injuries on the O-line, injuries at quarterback, or whether it was having an offensive coordinator and a poor offensive coordinator and a quarterback who was obsessed with throwing the ball and audibling out of so many run plays, that really wasn't fair to Breece. And as Mike says in the chat, Breece said when he spoke to the media yesterday, he was dealing with a knee injury. I mentioned that I did a video last night, recapping camp or recapping day two. And Hall said he dealt with a pretty significant knee injury last year, which, kudos to him. So I don't think it's that far beyond the realm of possibility that things finally in year 4, and I don't want to hear, oh, it's a contract. If Breece blows up, I don't want to hear that, oh, contract year. Oh, that's why he blew up. No, the reason he hasn't blown up so far, injuries, O-line, quarterback situation, OC situation. And I say this all the time. People talk about excuses versus reasons. If people don't like a player, they call a reason an excuse and vice versa. If you do like a guy, then an excuse becomes a reason. In my mind, these are all valid reasons. He wasn't going to blow up when he missed the most of the season with an injury. He wasn't going to blow up with an atrocious offensive line and a quarterback that didn't force defenses to respect the pass. And he wasn't going to blow up last year when they wouldn't commit to him and feed him the ball 18, 19, 20 times a game, which is where he can get into a rhythm, get going, and put up big numbers. I think this is the year, and I think those are the reasons why. You can say I'm being a homer. I mean, listen, if you've been following me long enough, I am anything but a homer right now. I'm about as down on this team as I've been in a very long time for reasons we'll get into throughout the offseason. But that's not to say there aren't some positives. And one of the biggest positives is the talent along the offensive line. And I think we're going to see Aaron Glenn and Tanner Ekstrand take advantage of that. And they're going to feed Breece Hall. We heard yesterday Hall saying that when the trade rumor surfaced, Aaron Glenn called him, said, we're not trying to trade you. I want you here. I want you to be our guy. I think he is going to be their guy. I think he's going to be an absolute monster. If there is a trade, it'll be because the Jets are 1-5 and the team is offering a premium pick for Breece in the last year of his deal or something like that. If he doesn't move on, I think this is going to be, and laugh at it if you want, but I think this is the year Breece Hall finally breaks out. Have a good one.